Chef.
Brett.
Clive.
Kasey.
Donny.
Camera
Chef
guy.
Donny.
Invisible guy.
I don't know what to
or
call
teammate guy.
Cord guy.
Teammate guy.
No, wait, allegiance
Teammate.
guy. And then camera guy.
Teammate.
Teammate never happened.
You guys are a team?
Yeah. Powerful duo, buddy.
Powerful allegiance.
Jesus. I mean, this is an episode long time coming.
220 plus just to prep for this.
223 practice episodes just to get here.
But how many years of friendship between you guys?
What's it, 10 now?
10 plus.
Is it 10? Yeah, it's 10.
Do we take any breaks in between there? No.
Not that you knew of.
Yeah.
A break on a one-sided break.
That's incredible. Decade long of friendship.
Yeah, Kasey and I, so for anyone listening, we're talking to Chef Donny D here, our coveted chef of the Meat Mafia. We went to college together, all three of us, but Kasey and I roomed together sophomore, junior, and senior year.
Yeah. And basically freshman year when you lived under my bed.
Oh my gosh, dude. The stories we could tell.
Yeah. Some we can't. But
Yeah, some we
can.
shouldn't.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Legally, we can't tell those stories.
It would just be redacted on the podcast.
What's the story about him when he was on the top bunk because he sleepwalks?
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, because I sit up in my sleep and like stare around the room like I'm a poltergeist or out of Paranormal Activity, and I was staring down at Harry while he was asleep.
Yeah, he would scare the crap out of me and Bennett and both of our girlfriends at the time because he would sit straight up in the middle of the night and we would all be awake and he would have this like weird like eye rolling into the back of his head look and we would just be sitting there going, I think he's messing with us, and you eventually end up that you were just messing with us?
Most were very legit, but because I knew that you guys explained exactly what I was doing, I was like, oh, I have to fake it sometimes now just to get in a couple extra pranks, but.
The pranks. Listerine.
Yeah. Yeah, Harry, I don't know if, because of the podcast, if people don't see the video of you standing up, Harry's like 6'4". What does he weigh? Like
230.
230, yeah. So
he can't get below 230.
No, he can't. I'm like 6 feet in the air on a bunk bed, and Harry grabs my mattress underneath, like centers his hand while I'm laying on it, and puts the mattress vertical and pins me against the wall. So I'm between the wall and the mattress, being pinned by Harry, just laying against the wall like this.
We had bunk beds.
And that's why when he said the Listerine, in response to that, I took his whole like 32 ounces of Listerine and just dumped it all over his mattress.
As you should.
Yeah,
that's what he deserves.
It was the only reasonable
complete
response.
shock.
Yeah.
How many years did you guys live together in college? Because for the listener, you guys are both a grade above me. So I wasn't as close with you two. Our mutual friend Bennett Didi brought the three of us together. So shout out Bennett Didi. Love that kid.
Love him. He's definitely listening.
Yeah. Yeah, love.
Yeah. So how many years in college did you guys live together? Just no,
3 years. 3 years, yeah.
So you guys were roommates for 3 years.
Yeah, but so
2.5 technically.
And we were both non-existent senior year.
No.
Because you were building the house up in New Hampshire and I was working downtown 3 days a week.
Yeah.
So we were like, our sweet senior year was bizarre because us two weren't there and then it was just the rest of the guys.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was, we weren't there senior year. So sophomore year, we had the whole year. Junior, half the year, because he went to Italy where he gained 20 pounds and started wearing scarves all the time.
Fedoras.
Because he ate too much gelato. And then
That's
senior year.
true.
Yeah. And then senior year, we had the suite with 6 people, but I was gone 3 days out of the week, every week, building the lake house with my dad. So,
wow. Yeah. So you guys lived together 2014-ish or 2013-ish through 2016-ish?
Yeah.
And then you and I had the pleasure of sharing a 1-bedroom Airbnb in New York for 3 months.
Yeah. 1 bedroom, full-sized bed, one of them.
This was peak COVID insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. We slept butt to butt in an Airbnb air mattress, right?
Butt to butt.
Piece of concrete. Everything was thumbtacked to the wall. There were literally no drawers in this Airbnb. We got completely duped.
Yeah. When
but
in
it was
doubt,
so much fun.
thumbtack it. That was our motto.
Yeah.
Weren't there like rats outside or like inside?
Oh, the last day that after he moved to Austin, I had like 2 days left. And we were both like, we were in the East Side, middle of summer, COVID, the city was a shithole. And to caveat the shit, he moves to Austin to chase a jiu-jitsu dream. I'm still in the Airbnb. And the last day when I was about to move out, there was literally just a massive human shit that was right outside of the Airbnb. Some homeless dude just took a massive shit. And I was like, I was like, no, I'm good.
Gift.
That was my chapter. Yeah, that was the bookend to our New York City experience.
You're like, I'm done with the city.
Exactly. No. But I feel like the theme of this podcast is like this theme of like friendship and passions and how it's all kind of like come together in this incredible way through the Meat Mafia. So you're now running the Donny Delicious cooking show. What are we? We're close to 20 episodes deep.
Yeah, we just released number 20.
That's incredible.
Number 20 compound spicy shallot and garlic compound butter, episode 20.
Yeah. That's incredible. So we're going to get into all that, you know, your culinary background, tips for healthy eating, Donny Delicious, all that good stuff. But this isn't your first foray as a creator, right? Because you were doing blogs, reviews, all this stuff when you were younger. And now it's kind of like you're pulling out all the talents that you always had and directing it in like the right sphere that you're supposed to be in. So maybe for the listener, like talk to us a little bit about the reviews, like you getting on camera early days, like what kind of led you to do that?
Yeah, well, because of college, I shouldn't have been at the school that we were at. It was not for me. I went for baseball. That didn't pan out. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. Maybe baseball in general is what I came to realize. And so I wanted to find the new passion. And so, as Harry can attest to, with classes, I just knew that I had to get X GPA. I asked the school, what's the lowest GPA I can receive without getting kicked out? And I calculated that so that I would just do that much work and get at least that GPA so I could stay in school and then find my actual passion. So I started testing all of these other things that you just mentioned, which is movie reviews is how it started. For anybody who knows brobible.com, I went.
That was legendary when you got that job.
Yeah.
We were like, Kasey's working for Bro Bible.
Because they were huge at the time.
Yeah.
Well, because like I started with Barstool because they're, you know, the mammoth. So I emailed them first, messaged them for a few months, didn't pan out, didn't hear back. And I was like, I'll just go a step down, which was Bro Bible, or a couple steps down. And they let me do movie reviews. It didn't pan out for long, but I started doing like WordPress blogs instead. Then that pivoted to video reviews, which my cousin John Paul at the time told me I got to start getting on Instagram and doing that. He's actually going to be here this weekend. You guys might want to meet him. But started doing video reviews of movies, which then pivoted into like, I just like making videos now because I had made some short films with the aforementioned Bennett Didi.
Should we give his full name and social security number?
Yeah, Bennett Mobs. Lives at X redacted. He was acting at the time. I started acting. I started doing stand-up comedy, started getting involved with like film editing. That was like early Clive days of making sure I had the wires in place, as Jose can attest to. And
we'll get into Clive.
Yeah, we'll have to do an aside for that. But basically just making content, putting it out on Instagram and just seeing what happened. All that was like snack reviews, food reviews. I always loved to cook, so I was doing my own food reviews too, where I always gave myself a 10, but I would rate the recipe. And yeah, so I was always doing some type of like movie or short film editing, clipping, things like that. So that led us to here.
Let's talk about the red book, the red binder, because that's a unique insight into your obsession with movies and creativity. Yeah, they're like if you ever read a book, it needs to be called the red book because I feel like it explains so much about you. So
the red binder.
Yeah, the red binder. Oh, dude, that was the most mad I think I've ever seen you is when we hid your red binder.
There's nothing worse you could do to me because that's like the most blood, sweat, and tears have gone into that red binder. So the red binder is a handwritten list of every movie I've ever seen in alphabetical order. So, and I typed it up once a year on the same date. And, I had it all categorized. I had a Planet Fitness numerical lock on it that I like carved out the side so that no one could break in. It was legit. So
it was foolproof.
It was absolutely foolproof.
So you were a cinephile. You saw everything.
Everything possible. Yeah. So like obsessed with movies. That was always like a family thing we all watched. The theme, as Harry just said, of my life and us as friends and my family is food and movies. So we watched a ton of movies together. We ate a lot of good food, mostly cooked by my Nani or mom or dad at the, whoever was cooking. We ate that. Uncle Phil, a lot of the meals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Shout out Uncle Phil.
Big shout out. Papa was at the grill a lot. So depending on who's cooking, and then just a ton of movies. Uncle Frank was always involved. And so, yeah, I was just obsessed with the movies, and I'm obsessed with like, all right, well, if I'm going to watch movies now I have to see every movie ever made and rate them all so that everyone else knows which are the best and they don't have to waste their time with it, which was a very unhealthy task to take on because it's not possible to do. And once I realized that, I was like, I'll slow it down with the movies and start doing other things.
Yeah. And the origins of Chef Donny Delicious can be traced back 10, 11 years ago because you actually went to culinary school in high school, right?
Yeah. So I went to,
which he famously loves to tell everyone.
I love to drop it in whenever possible to legitimize myself in the kitchen. But there was a co-op program at my first high school. So I did 3 years at Londonderry High School, public school in New Hampshire, 2 years at Governor's Academy in Mass. On the second year of high school, you can do a co-op program. And so we were like shipped off by bus to a local community like technical college, and we cooked meals taught by chef professors to us for 4 hours at the end of every day for the whole year, provided the school with meals and desserts, and that was my culinary school experience. But it was as legit as I've ever could have imagined. It was literally 2 chefs. I had to get my chef whites out, get them cleaned, take notes on food and how to make bread and cookies and, prepare vegetables and how to crack eggs and all of those things. And then it was just 2 hours of doing all those things every single day in the kitchen.
Would they yell at you?
They were very nice. Like, yeah, there was a very yes chef environment, but really? Not in a bad way. That's just like how you talk to each other in the kitchen. So you dress, what else was I going to call them? They introduced themselves as Chef Tabor, I think was his name. It was a while ago now, but yeah, you go, yes chef, and they call you chef, and you do all of your practices.
Did that experience convince you that you actually didn't want to pursue professional cooking as a career?
Yeah, 100%. Because I saw, you got to the end of the program and they were like, hey, we'll start helping you get into culinary schools. So I was looking at the time at, there's a really good one in Providence, Rhode Island. I forget the name of it right now off the top of my head. And then there's CIA, Culinary Institute of America. So there's a bunch of them, and they would help you get into it. And a lot of the people who went to that technical co-op program went on to become chefs and went to culinary school. So I looked at the life of a chef. I was like, well, after chef school, if you become a chef, what's that life like? And if anybody who knows, Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential or pretty much any chef or any background or has seen The Bear, really anything you watch, it's like they are completely and utterly dedicated in a way that is totally irrational and unhealthy, but like this burning passion that I always respected of any profession. I was always like, I want to be the profession that like disregards everything else, is a complete extremist, but like you learn more than anybody else will about that one topic, and you are a true expert as opposed to like a lot of fake guru experts on different topics today. That's what I respected at the time. And I was like, but am I willing to give up everything else for that? Probably not. So that was ultimately what made me decide, hey, I'll just do this for fun in my free time and make it a serious passion instead.
Knowing you as well as I do, that almost surprises me. Like, I feel like knowing that you would have to sacrifice that much stuff and you could be extreme like that. I feel like that's like your happy place.
True.
It would have been my happy place until I saw that they were like, so many chefs. Well, if you watch a Chef's Table, right? One of the that's really the convergence. And even with Brett and my friendship was like based on having watched Chef's Table together a bunch, literally.
Tim Rao,
yeah, exactly. Sean Brock, all of them. And so, because I think it's like the perfect convergence of incredible culinary insight, knowledge, and the best filmmaking in a 60-minute episode. Like such high quality. That intro is one of the most gorgeous intros to any show of all time. The song, the way it's filmed, the cinematography, like every bit of that mixes my two favorite passions. And so when you watch any of those episodes, every chef is like, I missed really quality years with my daughter. I missed really quality years with my elderly parent, and so like with me having a small, tight-knit, my dad and sister family, I'm like, I can't give up all that time with my sister and dad or like any loved ones in my life for just to cook, I need more of a work-life balance.
Yeah. I feel like that documentary makes you realize, to your point, just how masochistic these people really are, because when you're starting off, it's less than minimum wage. You're expected to work 100 hours a week. They typically give you like one day off, but you're still expected to go in, and they're just like pursuing excellence to the highest level in that craft. So it sounds like for you, you recognize that wasn't ultimately the path for you, but there were still some really good takeaways and there was a passion for cooking. And I'm just curious, like if you look back at your time at culinary school, what were just some of the biggest takeaways that you learned about like good food from your time there?
It was all the amount of like, it might take 20 minutes to make a recipe, but there's years of like practicing various things on the same subject. Like someone making really good sourdough bread isn't just like them taking out a recipe and making the bread. They like understand that every oven is different. They understand that the back of an oven is hotter than the front of the oven because the door opens and closes, and so the back stays hotter. And like there's so many subtle differences. I didn't know until this year that the numbers on a stove correspond to actual temperatures. Like when you put it there and you wait 10 minutes, your pan should be 400 degrees if you put it up to number 5. And I don't even know if that's the right number because I haven't learned them yet. But, you know, you just learn all these small things. So the thing I took away from it was watching the chef, the instructors, so Chef Tabor and the other one, teach us different recipes. They would go through such painstaking process of teaching all these really intricate details, which I loved because I was like, I want to be the annoying person who knows all those little things that can correct you, you know, like, like some, yeah, like I saw on a TED Talk that bumblebees actually, you know, like that guy, the annoying one. I don't want to be that person anymore. You know, I just do it because I love it now. But at the time I was like, you get so much, I feel like as you grow up, you get so much satisfaction from like knowing a thing someone else doesn't know or being right on a topic that sort of drifts away as you know, age a bit or mature a little more. So now, looking back, I'm like, the amount of info you had to know just to like really make a good bread consistently and not just get it right by luck once. It's so much feel, you know, it's not a robotic science. Like the guest you had before on this show, Miles Snyder, his Twitter is amazing because all he talks about is how everything is feel. Like you should not be a robot to like, we've just put a short out on this too on Donny Delicious is like, if it does 8 to 10 minutes or until it gets crispy, that's the part you should focus on. Like know what it means to be crispy bacon. Like there's a difference between crispy and dried out. There's a difference between like a little bit raw still and browned. So like get used to that part. Forget the time because that could change in any oven or with any recipe or with a different type of bacon even. So you need to like have a really good feel and smell and sight for all those things together that looks like it's browned, it's smelling crispy, and the bacon, you know, I'm hearing like the sizzle start to stop. So maybe that's really like the perfect moment instead of the number 10, you know?
How much of, and you kind of just like took my question right out of my mouth, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Yeah. How much of your own experience is just self-experimentation and self-taught stuff versus you actually going to culinary school? Like, how do you weigh those two in your mind of both of these are important, but which one do you feel like you actually like gain the most out of?
Well, without a doubt, the self-experimentation. I feel like that's part of a lot of this podcast too. You know, you guys, how much of figuring out colitis to healing yourself was self-experimentation with diet, all of it. Know, like, so culinary school, it's like school, right? Like culinary school teaches you how to work in a kitchen. You might learn basics of things, but you don't really come out of it being like, I learned 10 amazing recipes that like were brought in by this guy's Polish grandmother. You know, that only happens in real life when you meet a friend whose mom is Japanese and she makes you sushi or a dumpling, or, you know, my girlfriend is Hong Kong Chinese / Indian and Malaysian. So like they have recipes like chook. And so I'm like, I have no idea what that is, but it's their version of chicken soup, but it's with rice that you make almost to like a porridge consistency that I never would have known about. And like, that's really where you learn, to me, everything. That's where I learned absolutely everything about cooking was from all the people I know, primarily my Nani, who, you know, is thankfully still with us. Yeah. But doesn't cook anymore. You know, everybody who ever tried her food was like, this is the best thing ever. You know, she's straight out of Palermo, Italy, brought all those recipes with her, not written down because that's just what she did.
That's what they did.
Yeah. You know, came out of the wartime and that's what they did. So I watched her in like amazement eating these stuffed zucchini flowers that looked beautiful. And you know how I feel like everybody has this phenomenon, but there's probably a person in your life, maybe it's mom or grandma, who like could make you a ham and cheese sandwich that just tastes better than any ham and cheese sandwich you ever made, but they didn't put any different ingredients in it. It was just like literally the love and like attention to detail, and they just have like a softer touch. You know, it's like because they made it for you, it just tastes different and better. And I'm like, how do I replicate this? Like, this is so meaningful. Like, actually having a meal. There's like a great Anthony Bourdain quote of how if he knows someone cooks or like a chef, he automatically has respect for them. Excuse me. Because it's like a very giving, nurturing thing to do that. And this is not a pat on the back because I like doing it. I'm just saying, like, I respect anybody who cooks for their family every day because it's such a nurturing thing to do, to like nourish the body. And if you care about the food you're making and get better at making it, you know, a good meal can literally brighten your whole day. It can make your week. You could remember that beef bolognese that you had up 3 months ago and think of it and be like, that was so good. You know, it'll change like the way you feel.
It's like a labor of love, right? There's like a time investment. There's a pain investment. You know, like you said, you could spend hours on a dish that's going to take you 10, 15 minutes to eat. And as like the recipient of that, you're benefiting from all that the chef put into that meal.
100%. And the beauty of if it did take an hour to make, is like, if you're actually part of that making process, like when my Nani's making stuffed eggplant, she's eating and tasting to make sure it's like good by the end. So by the time the meal comes out, you know, she's a very small 5-foot Italian woman anyway, but she didn't even really eat at dinner time because she had already eaten everything while she was making it. So she was full, you know, and that's another beautiful part of the process because you have to taste as you go to make sure it tastes good. And so being part of the making process is also like this beautiful event that you get to share with somebody that you're making food with, that I always like really appreciated with my Nani. But I was too young to get involved in the kitchen. I was just really sitting and watching, and she would give me taste of things. And I'm like, I need to know how to do this.
Totally. So you refined a lot of your culinary skills at a young age. When did you start to become attuned to like just nutrition? What are the right foods to nourish your body with? What's real food versus fake food? Like, when did that picture start to be painted for you in your mind?
Yeah. I feel like now you know, I'm sure we've talked about this just in the hours of different friendly discussions we've had of like, how can anybody possibly eat something and not think it affects their body? That was me for like 20 years. I never once thought about like the 2 Mountain Dews a day I'm drinking and the 6 Pop-Tarts I'm hammering, you know, brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tarts, like, oh, that's why I'm fat. Like it didn't like compute. I know like people may have told you it, but I was also being taught like, when I heard the food pyramid the first time in like 6th grade, I go, oh, nice. So I stapled it to the wall and I was like, all right, I need to get 11 servings of bread in a day.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I did. I was like, all right, 11 of these, I need 9 plums and like candy was even like its own small category. I was like, nice.
Sick.
Yeah. That's how I'll end each day, you know, cap it off. So, I'm sorry, I think I tailed off. What was the original question?
Like, just when did you start to wake up to like, what is proper nutrition?
Yes. Yeah. So like, I feel like, again, that comes back to the people. So every time I ate with my Nani, she would make like a side salad, like an Italian salad with her own homemade olive oil and basic balsamic dressing, just beautiful. And it was all the lettuce and tomatoes and everything came out of the garden that my papa worked in all day because he was retired at the time. So it was from his garden outside. And I was like, why would you ever do this? Like, why would, like, you just go to the grocery store? Like, why would you make your own food? And he would bring me to that garden and he'd be like, check this out. And he'd show me this case of dirt with worms in it. And he'd go, I started throwing eggshells in the fertilizer. And I'm like, I don't care. Let's go fishing. Like, why does this matter? You know, I didn't get it. And now I'm like, what such a loss to not have cared then. Like, to think back at the amount I could have absorbed, the amount of recipes and tricks and little things she did to make every bit of her fried food taste very light. And the things he did to make like a garden really flourish. Cause like I try to grow a plant at my house and every leaf is dead. I'm like, how did he do this? How did it all look beautiful and taste amazing? Like that's where it really started to be like, okay, there's ingredients you grow, high quality, like you put time and effort and energy into that thing. And then secondly, all the other people I've met. So, you know, my current girlfriend, Isabella, huge knowledge base on nutrition. You know, she knows so much about like what's good and bad for the body and like even where she comes from, right? Different cultures when you visit. So I went to Thailand. When I was in Thailand, I ate probably more than I eat here. And I just felt amazing the whole time. I don't know. Like I hear this all the time. People go to Italy and they eat pizza the whole time and they're like, I lost weight. Yeah. And I didn't get it. And then I went there and I ate just fish and hammered fried rice the whole time and like massaman curry. And I ate an endless amount of mango sticky rice, and I came back less weight than when I got there and feeling better. And the moment I came, and like I noticed that at the time, like my wrist really hurt, my knee hurt, and then when I was there, all of that just went away. And when I came back, it came back. So she was a big impact, and then my ex as well, huge nutritional like knowledge base, really into like regenerative farming and all these things. I know she even gave you guys some books on like
the Dorito Effect.
Yeah, Dorito Effect.
I would not have read that without it.
That's what I mean. We even at that time we were talking about like, let's go learn how to farm.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, no, and I signed up for a farming course, and he, classic Harry, he
no-showed?
Not only no-showed, but when the day came to go to the farming thing, he goes, "Oh, I'm in Colorado." I'm like, I'm at the farm.
Across the country.
I am at the farm. I have an 8-hour farming day. I was supposed to do it with you across the country.
That's classic.
Yeah. So a lot of different close people in my life affected like, oh, wait, this matters greatly. And then you just read 1 or 2 books and realize everything else that you've been told is a lie. And thankfully, there's a podcast like this to tell people about it daily.
Jiu-jitsu is big for you too, though.
Yeah, that's the body now, right? Like that was when I got out of college, because we did sports our whole lives, right? So we all played baseball in college. And when I went to college, I was still working out and doing all those things. Even when I quit baseball, I was still working out, and we were playing basketball every day. And you know, you're just active because you're around your friends and you're doing things and you're just forced to sweat. I left college, and in 3 months, I had consumed like 2 pints of Ben & Jerry's a day for 90 straight days, and I gained 30 pounds. So
it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, there's a picture. I don't know if it's possible to implant the picture in the video.
We will put the picture right here.
Yeah, it's me. So it was us in DC. You had to do like this. It's in the Spy Museum in DC.
Yeah,
and
it's since it's closed down, I think.
Probably. Yeah. It wasn't that great of a museum, but there was a part where you have to like replicate, you know, in James Bond where they jump on the helicopter and grab the pole and like hold on to it. They're simulating that with you not far off the ground. And they're like, if you can hold on for 60 seconds, we'll give you like 10 grand or something. I was like, this sounds so easy. And I jumped up there.
You're forgetting the best part of the story.
You hit me.
The people in front of us in line were like a bunch of like third graders who just smoked it. Like they held on for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, they were on forever. There wasn't an actual cash prize, but it was like bragging rights for top place. So I was like, this 11-year-old girl just held on forever. I'm going to be able to crush this. I'm like 235, no solid muscle because I hadn't worked out in a while. I didn't know why. Held on to it. Off in 3 seconds. And in those 3 seconds, he took the least flattering picture that's ever been taken in my life with this just massive gut. And I'm like, I need to change this. Clearly not working out has impacted me. I got to stop eating the Ben & Jerry's. So I picked up ping pong. Because obviously, naturally, what's the first thing you do to lose weight? Ping pong.
Yeah. Well, tell people about where you train ping pong at.
Yeah. So, again, with the extremist mentality, I'm like, I'm not just going to find a friend with a table and like ask him to play a bunch. I'll find like a local Chinese club and join that. So I went to this, it's called the Boston Table Tennis Center or something. And it was a guy named Ping who ran 6.
You just made that up.
Bing. Sorry. Bing. His name was Bing, 100%. He literally just drank oolong tea at his desk the entire 8 hours a day. It was open every day. And I went there for 3 hours. I bought a paddle. I bought the shoes. You know, I started getting ingrained. I was there 3 hours a day for like 4 months, started working off the weight, realized like, am I really going to be like, try to be an Olympic ping pong player now? Is that the goal? And so I bailed on that and then and I Googled wrestling for adults. And because I wrestled in high school and I was like, oh, you know, I loved that. And that was like the best workout I've ever had is high school.
And you were good
wrestling.
In high school too. Didn't you pick it up your senior year and you had a really good record?
So I did it freshman year. I got kicked off sophomore year for hazing, which is its own story.
Whoa.
I didn't do anything bad.
Bullshit.
Didn't do anything bad. I did a typical high school prank to a very close friend that got some guy in the back was holding up his camera at the time and it got blown out of proportion. But we were friends and like the school just had to be like, no. And so I got kicked off for that, but I did it junior year and then senior year as well. So I did 3 non-consecutive years and I wasn't good until senior year because it took a while to get the fundamentals there. So I really wasn't that good, but I was like, this is the best workout of all time. Mm-hmm. Like I've never sweat so much, been so sore, felt like I'm learning something that to me mattered, like an actual thing that I could use someday or like in my real life. If something ever happened to me, I could do something in response. Mm-hmm. So I Googled wrestling for adults and they were like, Jiu-jitsu is what that's called.
Had you actually never heard of jiu-jitsu before?
I knew of the UFC, but and I had heard the term jiu-jitsu. I didn't actually know that jiu-jitsu didn't have striking. And I was like, I don't care. Don't know why. I still really have never cared about striking. I think it's because in jiu-jitsu, you can go 100% because there's a concept of the tap, right? You can just submit at any moment that you feel uncomfortable or you're in a compromising position. Even if someone's going 100%, like there's so much lower chance of like a serious injury. Their injuries happen a lot, but that's in competitive jiu-jitsu. In a striking art, if you get punched in the head at 100% force, that is probably an instant concussion, if not a knockout. Like there's so much more to risk and it's your brain. And that's why it just steered me clear of it. Not to knock striking sports, but I prefer the jiu-jitsu for that reason.
Yeah.
What was that first experience like on the mat for you?
I stuck to my wrestling and they were very nice to me, but I was clearly not doing the right stuff. And so I just kept getting submitted. I got submitted by this like 34-year-old female who was maybe 140 pounds. And she submitted me like 10 times in 5 minutes. And I was like,
Jose's over there like, yes.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I'm learning a good thing now. So I was like, there's no possible way this should happen. It feels like magic when it's happening to you. It's like, this person knows witchcraft. I don't know, because there's no way she should be able to do this to me. It really doesn't compute until you go and you face someone who's even smaller than you, and then they just decimate you, and you have no clue how they did it. And I was like, well, now I need to know how they're doing this. So that got me hooked pretty much instantly.
How many classes did you go to your first year?
Well, I was like, all right, who's the best at jiu-jitsu? At the time, like in contention was this guy named Gordon Ryan at the time. He had like just won his 80cc gold, double gold kind of thing. And I was like, all right, well, how long did it take him to get a black belt? And it took him, I don't know, 5 or 6 years or something. So I was like, all right, what's the general timeline for getting a black belt? I think what they say is if you go 3 times a week for 10 years straight, you should get a black belt. Take it about 2 years, 3 times a week to get each belt, right? White, blue, purple, brown, black. So I said, all right, what I'll do is I'll go every day, twice a day. Instead of 3 times a week, I'll go 14 times a week. And that way I'll accelerate that learning curve.
Yep.
So I ended up getting a blue belt in a year. I got the purple belt within like a year and then a few months. But like getting too focused on the belts is really not the way to go about it. Like I definitely was learning enough to have earned it. But it was a drag. But to answer the question, I went an obscene amount of times just to really like get along that curve as quickly as possible.
Yeah. When we lived together in New York, I think you were literally training 2 to 3 times a day, going to the gym. It was a job.
Yeah, 100%. Henzo Gracie's Blue Basement. I was trying to go train with.
You to go? What's that? He couldn't convince you to go?
I tried a few times. We wrestled. We did it one time in my previous house in Revere on a rug, and we just ended up with a shitload of rug burn, and it was not fun.
Yeah.
But now you got the mats though.
Oh yeah, the mats. Also,
the garage.
Jose.
Training Jose.
Yeah.
What do you think it was about jiu-jitsu that was just what pulled you in? Because people get obsessed with it. They quit their jobs. They want to go all in on it. They want to train. Like, what was it for you that just pulled you in to the sport?
I feel like it's a different reason for everybody that gets pulled in, like specifically their own reason. A lot of people do it for like bullying or, they had an experience where they really want to learn self-defense. I don't know if it was one thing for me. Mine was just the background of having done wrestling and knowing that, and I was, you had 2 brothers or have 2 brothers. You have a sister, but I'm sure you had a ton of friends you wrestled with just for fun, or Bennett, you want to wrestle at the lake and pin him and tap him.
Kill him.
And ruin his soul.
Yeah, on record, tapped Bennett Didi.
Yeah.
You hear that, Bennett?
And so I was wrestling my whole life with friends. And I was like, if I can do this and lose weight doing it and learn something that will actually help me and not be the person who's like, oh, if someone has a gun or grabs you by the wrist, you do this and you just make up some stuff. There's a really great Instagram account called McDojo Life where they talk about a super fake martial arts. And it was like stuff I used to say to people when I was a teenager that I was just making up because I wanted to look like I knew stuff, but I really didn't know it. And now having done it, I'm like, I feel like I've been given a secret code that other people just don't know about. And so that addicted me to like this inner circle of you feel like you're part of a club of just this secret group of assassins worldly. And so that kind of got me, I was addicted to like the community aspect of that. And then just feeling like I knew stuff that other people didn't know.
You know, all of your interests are interestingly enough like these endless pursuits of mastery that you could probably just go in a million different directions and always like never quite get to like the full mastery level. Like there's always more to learn, which is an interesting thing to be engaged in. Is that like where do you think that comes from?
The pursuit of that, like the interest?
Like, the interest in these things that don't really seem like there's necessarily like that, I don't know, there's no end. You could continue
There's no top of the mountain.
Yeah, you can continue to be as good of a chef and refine your craft over and over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, right? What I feel like I've starting to learn much more is that it wasn't that I chose the things that didn't have the top of the mountain. I don't know if there's anything that has a real like top of the mountain. You know, I think there's always that you can learn more. There's another way to look at it. So I've tried to reform the extremist mentality there. Why I picked these things, they just aligned with like who I wanted to be with people that I looked at. Like my dad has done carpentry for 30 years. When you watch him think through the process of building a house, you're like, one, how do you remember all of this? And then two, how did you actually look at dirt and then build this? You know, like castles, literal castles he builds. And then you walk into them and you're like, this is gorgeous. He's a custom carpenter. You've both been in multiple of his buildings. He's built every house I lived in until I moved out. That was like, I looked at that and I thought, you can only do this to this level, this speed, with 30 years of experience. That's the expert, like master ninja person, you know, the Miyamoto Musashi, like a swordsman kind of guy who has done it for 50 years and is just, you know, the documentary Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
One like of the best films ever.
Documentaries of all time, food documentary. And it's Jiro. I apologize for the pronunciation. I don't know
it's
Japanese
like 96.
That well. Yeah.
3 Michelin starred chef. He's been doing it for 80 years.
Who's the guy?
Jiro. Yeah, it's the same people that created Chef's Table first did this documentary.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's 3 Michelin starred sushi restaurant in Japan.
I was just like, because, you know, the things that are most valued, that I value the most, that I like get the most self-satisfaction from is stuff that I worked to get. And so I got that from my dad as well. You know, working, you know, you work an 8-hour day and then you look back at what you did, and where there was, again, once a pile of dirt, there's now a deck that people will enjoy their meals on with their family, you know, a backyard deck. And it's like that didn't exist before. And it takes physical labor to do it. And it's really hard and it stinks. And while you're doing it, you're sweating and you're like, I'd rather be doing anything else. And that's the bad way to look at it too. But like, that's what you're thinking when you do it. And then after it's done, there's no better feeling of satisfaction. And so those are the things I feel like with all of these different areas of interest, I'm like, that expert master craftsman is the person I always respected the most, probably because of my dad, because he's my main hero. So like him being that person and actually doing that as a job, I'm like, I just want to be that for whatever interests me the most.
Yeah, it's so easy. It's like the Sisyphus metaphor of like focusing on getting the boulder up to the hill, but it's actually just about moving the boulder every single day.
Yeah.
Right? That 100%. Continuous work.
Yep. And except in real life, the boulder doesn't roll all the way back down the hill every time.
Exactly.
The hill never ends.
Yeah.
I just
keep making progress.
PTSD of digging a hole with your dad, you, me, and Bennett, just digging a hole to fill with cement. Yeah. But there's something about him being able to teach that to you at a young age that now can transcend into all these different things that you do. It just like informs your approach to all the different things that you like to do in life.
Yeah.
It's super cool seeing how his impact on you has actually been so monumental.
And now I get to be like, I want to make you the best meal I can make in the house you built me, you know? So it's like a cool, again, convergence of those things where I'm sitting at the table in the living room of the home that he's built me and I'm making him a meal. Very small example of like me giving back or like showing him that I'm trying to do what you've done your whole life, also just in a different area, which he respects.
There's almost been like 2 like distinct focal points to your obsessiveness, where it was one, it was jujitsu. You thought that you wanted to compete competitively, be the best in the world. You quit your corporate job. You moved to Austin before we did to do that. You ultimately found out that wasn't what, you know, your life's calling was meant to be. You got another corporate job, and then you ended up quitting that to be like full-time creator, founder of the Donny Delicious brand. maybe we could talk a little bit about that we could all chime in on it, like that origin story, the genesis of how the three of us reconnected and now we're working together full time.
Yeah. So starting from when we're in the full bed in New York apartment together and then moving, or?
No, I think maybe just start about like you
probably right when you got to Austin.
So when I quit the job? Yeah.
Yeah, when you quit the job.
Yeah, I left. Well, I had always, when I was working a corporate job, everybody now will tell you, quit your job and go do whatever you love. And I was like, that sounds awesome, but I don't actually know what I love yet, So I got to try a bunch of things, and I'm not willing to quit the security blanket of having a paycheck, which, I think the whole quit your job and do what you love is an amazing thing. But there's also like, you should definitely have some respect for the fact that getting a paycheck is an absolute necessity. If you can do that in a secure way, props to you. You've worked a corporate job before. You've worked a corporate job before. If you do that in an intelligent way, which I was trying to go about it for so long, I was like, I'm going to do this thing I don't like that much, which is sales, and get better at it, even though I don't like it, so that I can save and really, really is frugal, spend too much or not spend enough?
Frugal is not spend a lot.
Okay, so be frugal. I always mix that up. But be frugal and really just a hermit. Not do anything excessive, like really get dialed in with personal finances, save as much money as possible so that I have a serious nest egg so that when I do find the thing I love, then I can quit. Mm-hmm. That was my approach to it. I didn't want to be the person who was doing the corporate job and spending as much as I earned. And then when I found the thing, I just have to keep doing the corporate job while I did the thing, or quit and live like I'm destitute and like out of a van or something, which is cool if you're into that. But I didn't want to do that because that would prevent me from cooking and spending time with family and having the life that I wanted to have and having probably a proper relationship romantically, all those things. So I chose corporate job, save money, which when I quit my job in New York when we were together, which was a great job, sales job at Toast, selling payroll systems in addition to POS systems, great company. But I said, this isn't my passion. Finally found this thing, jiu-jitsu, have an awesome nest egg of money. Well, just pursue this full time. And it wasn't actually that I decided that that wasn't my passion anymore. It's that I actually was getting hurt because I was going way too hard. Back to why you should, if you are an extremist, no hate on them because they're the people I respect the most, but like it doesn't work for everybody and it's very unsustainable. Just like extremist diets, like if you don't have it, if it doesn't work for you, just because it works for someone doesn't mean anything. It has to work for you. You have to be bought in. And so but more than bought in, I was bought into going to jiu-jitsu 2 times a day, every day. But that wore down on me so much that I was like really prone to injury. And then I had basically all in the same fell swoop. I had bulging disc after bulging disc in my spine. And then eventually it was all instantaneously 3 herniated discs in my lumbar. I broke my wrist and I got a staph infection all in the same month. So that I was just thinking, okay, this isn't sustainable. And the path to making money in a sport that's burgeoning like jiu-jitsu is really difficult unless you're going to be on social media as well. And I didn't want to be a personality like Kasey as a personality, my actual name, and me as a person. Chef Donny D is nice because it's an alias, but to make money in jiu-jitsu, it has to be you, as the personality. And I didn't want to do that. So I knew I wouldn't make that much money in jiu-jitsu. So I had to go back to a corporate job before I finally was able to look at you two and say, hey, if there's ever a chance for me to join the team in any capacity, I'm down. So luckily that all worked out.
Yeah, even before that too. Texo
Texo is what I mean. Like
that's a little part of the story.
That's a very nice part of the story. I was still doing the 2-a-days at that time, right? And then you and I, because of the KTK reviews of reviewing food in Boston, Harry goes, I want to get into content. I want to get into building a brand and like marketing. Let's do back to you. I think you're good on camera and the food reviews are always good. So like, let me do the editing. I'll post the videos and all you have to do is just be there to film. So he spearheaded that for us to do Texo XO Eats. That was something I stopped because I was just like, I don't think I can put enough time to this because I want to do jiu-jitsu much more. And any time away from that is not worth it to me at this moment. So I stopped. But luckily, not doing that, you both should be thanking me because not doing that has led to the Meat Mafia. You're welcome.
I hard pitched you so hard.
So hard.
I remember I was there.
It was like the second, it was probably number 2 in terms of hard pitches between you two. Like the number 1 documentary, pitch. Number 2.
Yeah. One worked, one failed. Yeah.
Well, documentary's on hold.
It's on hold. Yeah, exactly.
It's temporarily on hold.
And XOXO, frankly, is basically just Chef Donny D in another blanket.
Which is cool to see it come back full circle to, and I think this is an amazing point in your story where it's a constant iteration and timing does play a part in that.
Huge.
Where like maybe, you know, if you had seen some more success, like right out of the gate with XOXO in terms of like views, maybe you're like, oh wow, this is a massive opportunity. But like your skill set and your desire to do the actual work and you being really good at it was obvious, I think, to everyone who knew you and probably to yourself. But like just the timing of it, you had other interests. You had jujitsu that you were down in Texas for, so like it pulled you in a different direction. But there's so many of these elements that you need to consider and think about when you're like actually putting your heart into something.
Totally.
And it was actually very mature of you to be like, yeah, I just don't think I want to do this. And I was sitting there going, dude, you're so good at this stuff.
And that's the thing. I would rather end it early if I'm not going to commit to you, than fake it. But I appreciated that you wanted to do it with me. And like, I'm glad that we've all ended up here and that you two have started a thing that I could jump in on and, you know, that worked out that way. But even when you were right, there's a difference in our personalities too. Like you're more optimistic than I am in a lot of ways. And you have like this creative side to you that you can think of possible futures that I can't. And a lot of them can happen and some of them can't. And like we balance each other well where I'm like, well, hold back this one because that's not realistic at all. This one has a chance. And then that one, you know, blows through the roof like a meat mafia kind of thing or Twitter or whatever you're doing. So at the time, when you were saying this could pop off, like, let's keep doing it. Don't quit on me yet. I was thinking like, but you don't get it. I was doing KTK reviews for 6 years. Like we did XOXO for 2 months, but I had been thinking of like, I did 6 years of movie, snack, and food reviews. I had like 450 posts of reviews that I edited. It took me 5 hours to do each one. So how much, 3,000 hours of time that didn't end up making me money, that I didn't care it didn't make me money, but I didn't want to possibly go down that hole again. Yeah. Little did I know that something like this that you two were doing, you combine that optimism and like the drive and the work with his drive and work, and then the story of the colitis and all of this, and you create this thing, the Meat Mafia, that now is what we wanted XOXO to be, or KTK, or any of those things. And, you know, it's like you just said, it's all timing and like who you partner yourself with. And it just wasn't the right time with XOXO, and it was for Meat Mafia / Donny D.
Yeah. Timing is everything. And I think why Harry was so persistent is because all of us that knew you, or even people that didn't know you that well that would see your content, we would all just be like, this guy is so fucking talented. He's such a good creator. Like, if there's anyone that's going to make it, it's going to be Kasey. So I think you saw that and you were like, fuck, if we could just replicate some of that magic and bring it out into Austin, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
But it's really hard when you're just building a pure content platform with no means to monetize.
Yeah.
So that's why the Meat Mafia made so much sense. Is like, we were at a point in the business where we were like, look, dude, like, we can be able to pay you to do this, and we can actually build this thing into a brand in a way that's way more sustainable. So like, you were actually able to quit your job, and it's not like you're perfectly supplementing what you were making yet, but you're like, now at least I have a way to be able to like provide for myself and actually create without the stress of like, okay, I'm doing this with no money and no actual plan in sight of how we're going to monetize in the future.
100%.
Right.
And it was the best of all the worlds, right? Like when the option, like when we started, I was doing clips of the podcast and other things, and we went on the road trip, and I was Clive the wire guy, you know?
Yeah.
And so whatever I had to do to just be part of the group and part of the team and all that stuff. But the perfect, like, what prevented me from doing it with KTK was time and effort of something that didn't pan out before, that was taking away from like my jujitsu and work and relationships and stuff that I didn't want to do anymore. I could have just gone and worked in a kitchen, but I didn't want that lifestyle. And that was a whole different other avenue I chose not to take. But this was like, you basically handed me on a silver platter the best of all the worlds of the thing I love the most, and said, which the last piece of it was in KTK, like some of the things I was reviewing, a cosmic brownie, for example, right? Out of the package, Little Debbie's cosmic brownie. You've had them before, obviously.
So, yes. Yeah.
Like the best thing ever, but the worst thing ever for you. Like, I think it has like 100 grams of sugar in that.
Does it really?
Maybe 80. It's
That's
above
insane.
60. Yeah.
We need to fact check that.
Fact check it. That every Little Debbie's thing has like over 60 grams in just that, you know? And so I'm like, how can I, in good conscience, now that I care about this with the person I was with at the time and the person I'm with now, and like the people in my life who are affecting me nutrition wise, I'm like, how can I, in good conscience, give a Little Debbie Cosmic Brownie a 10 out of 10, which it deserves flavor-wise, How can I do that knowing it is wreaking havoc on your body? And that was the part where I'm like, we watched, I forget which chef table it was, but we were in Revere watching it. And the guy was just, even my favorite chef, David Chang, you know, like these people, Thomas Keller, all these guys, best of the best in the world at their craft of chefs, are using canola oil in like 50% of their recipes where they use oil to make meat. And so I'm like, how is that possible? How is it possible that health isn't more prioritized in high-end cooking? And it's just because, and I get it, I'm not bagging on them, right? Like canola oil just does the job differently, and they'll argue better from just a gastronomic perspective of making the meat and not burning the oil and getting it to the proper temperature that stays there and it doesn't blah, blah, blah and all that, but it's worse for your health. That's just the argument that they make every time. And it's hard to disagree with it from just a culinary perspective. So I was like, there has to be a better version of this. And so when you guys pitched or like presented me with the possibility of doing, you know, when I said, hey, would we ever do a cooking show? And then you were like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, 100%. Start doing it now. That was like, oh, now I get to like put all the things I care about the most into this one perfect package, Chef Donny Delicious, which was like, again, thank you to both of you for giving me the opportunity to do it. Cause now I'm like, I got to prove this thing right. So everybody listening now, hopefully can watch all those episodes.
Oh, it's going to be
get the views
up. It's going to be proven so right.
I know. I have no doubt about that. Just because it has to be a thank you that it works out for the two of you.
You have no option but to make it successful.
That's what I mean. I have no back against the wall.
And you kind of touched on it, but for someone that's listening to this that's never watched a Donny Delicious episode, like what kind of ethos is the show? What's the show about?
Yeah, it's just taking, like, obviously animal-based, mostly recipes, right? Meat forward, protein forward, high, you know, typically high fat, just avoiding, basically we don't make anything in a package, right? As long as it doesn't come out of a package and I make it there, we'll use it. So all fresh ingredients made in a, like the actual format of the video is like quick, hopefully very entertaining, some informative bits, and then some entertainment from the three of us, just like implanting the friendship that we've always had into the videos. So just delivering recipes that hopefully everybody wants to cook, that are easy to cook, right? That I think when I started doing it, I was like wanting to take these super elaborate recipes that took 8 hours, and Harry's like, let's not do 8-hour recipes anymore, which is fair, you know, because now it's like, what we're doing, even from episode 1 to 5 to then 6 to 10 and now 10 to 20 is a completely different show. So now it's like a 3-minute video that will give you a recipe you definitely want to try. That's very good for you. And even takes some of those really high-end Michelin quality recipes that we use almost to the T, but just switch out canola oil for X or, you know, some other MSG and just leave that out because not necessary to have, you know, like different swaps like that, where you can at least come to us and be like, all right, I know it will be healthy. At the very least, I know it will be healthy, and how delicious it can be, that's up to them to do for me. So that's what we're trying to do with the show.
Are there any other people out there making cooking content that you think are similar to what you're doing? Because there aren't that many people who are doing like health forward meals plus like
entertainment,
convenient.
I don't know if it's, you know, we're trying to be the difference in that one regard. So like even my favorite, when I brought up the idea for the show, I listed Josh Weissman and Maddie Matheson as my like North Stars for the show, you know, because they're like, Maddie Matheson with just the unbelievable entertainment.
So entertaining.
Josh Weissman with just the unbelievable quality videos and like real knowledge. And obviously Maddie Matheson with extremely real knowledge as well. So I was like, I want to do that kind of thing. And then you guys were just it just has to be healthy. So, you know, great convergence. Nobody really avoids, like we'll straight up avoid things that just aren't healthy. Like I'll make things for myself that I know aren't as healthy as they could be, and I'll eat them, but we won't put it on the show because there are literally so many recipes you can make that are extremely healthy by our standards too. Like people will look at a cheeseburger, or you made a great point of this on the episode with the Nashville hot chicken tenders. Like typically people will be like, that's a bad food for you. And the argument is like, well, why? You know, why is that a bad food for you if it's just like pasture raised chicken that's organic with breaded in pork hot sauce in pork rinds baked in the oven? Why is that bad? And if you can make it good and make it delicious and make it have a great mouthfeel and all the things that you want from a dish, you know, there's no argument for why it's unhealthy unless you're going to be radical and just say that the meat is. So that's what we're trying to put forward. And we know, like, to us three and to everybody who listens to this show, have a certain idea of what healthy is. And that is just real ingredients raised well or grown well. End of sentence, right? Like, it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. So that's all we do, is just avoid stuff out of a package or that's been artificially grown. Mostly
chicken recipes.
Yeah, they have chicken. You two have a big problem with the chicken.
No, we got a lot. We're working in beef. Yeah, but it's a good point. We're working it in.
We're raising the budget a little bit.
Now we're doing a lot of butter, which is good.
Yeah. But you touched on a good point. We need to get out of the stigma of like just demonizing foods in particular, and it's very rare that it's the food itself that's unhealthy. It's the preparation method, like you said. Yeah. Like, you made a loaded fries episode, and we were initially like, is that really on brand? But it's like, what is loaded fries?
I said dirty loaded fries.
Dirty loaded fries.
Was the name. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
But what is it? It's regenerative ground beef. It's potatoes. They're organic cooked in tallow, spices. Like, what's unhealthy about that? Nothing. It's literally a health food.
Yeah, but you look at it and you're like, oh, I'd get that out of a food truck and then I'd be on the toilet for the next 3 days. It's like, no, you won't. It's just because of what they cooked it and how they cooked it. But you can just replicate that almost exactly and have it be just as delicious. And it doesn't have to be that way. That's why we love Ziki. You know, they're doing like the food we love, but cooked well.
Yeah. One of the things I love about your show too is I feel like it's taught me that there are these little tricks and skills that any chef can pick up that will immediately upgrade your cooking game. Like the compound butter episode, it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. And it's like, what are you doing? You're taking butter, you're putting shallots in there, chili, garlic, etc. You're blending it up and you're giving the steak an entirely new flavor profile. And you're like, that's how you actually make this diet sustainable, is making it taste delicious and varying up the ingredients every single day. So every time you have a bite of steak, it can literally taste so good and actually be really good for you too.
100%. When I saw the Compound Butter series by Thomas Straker on his Instagram, and even he uses canola oil for some of them to like fry the shallots and stuff. Like, because again, that's what people learn to do, and no hate on it, but we're like, we won't do that. We'll just switch it out with ghee. And maybe it makes it slightly different, but I'd rather that different one that's not that actually different. It's pretty much tastes almost identical, just with a different, oil. And so when we found that, I'm making a reel right now. I was just editing it today about how, like, I want to prioritize the compound butter because the first episode was spicy shallot and garlic compound butter, right? It's this red looking compound. It looks unbelievable on camera. It looks insane melting on your steak. The one I just made and put in the freezer until Harry canceled the day we were going to film and made it a different day. The one I have in my freezer right now is homemade pesto and black pepper compound butter. And I make 2 logs of it. That way I have the switch out for the show and one that I can eat. We had Caleb from Strong Coffee over yesterday to do jujitsu, and we made steaks for everybody. And we put the pesto was like 10 times better than the spicy shallot one. Really? It was unbelievable. And the point, to your point that you just made, is that if you're on a diet, like a carnivore diet, or you're just animal-based or meat-forward or whatever you want to call it, keto, paleo, you can make these things, compound butters, which is literally just unsalted butter. You add flavorings via herbs and spices and other vegetables, and you add salt. And then you make this incredible tasting butter that now when you have a ribeye, it just tastes like bucatini with pesto on it, right? Or it tastes like you're in Japan eating wasabi, right? Because it's a wasabi-based butter. Or like I just looked up one that's bone marrow butter with a different type of salt. So it will transform the meat that you're eating. It just takes the vehicle that you're eating, which is the meat, the steak, the ribeye, the ground beef, whatever, and it transforms it into a completely different flavor profile. So your palate is just totally confused. It's like muscle confusion, but for your tongue.
I love this aspect of cooking. Like you can just take like two or three things and make it a little bit different, and it completely transform your experience with something that's very similar. Yeah. Like 100%. You don't need to overcomplicate it. I feel like that's one of the health hacks that you use all the time is just like, add in a little bit of a different spice or a different sauce and it makes a massive difference. Yeah. All right. So 20 episodes in, almost half a year.
Yep.
What has been your biggest learning experience from episodes 1 till now on the content creation side of things?
On the content creation side, I mean, people are really loving tip videos. That gets people going. I think because when I post a video that's about, there was one I just posted recently. I think it was the zesting one. Yeah, it was the zesting one. It was, I was saying, because even Harry laughed at me on the show. On the show, we were recording something, and I said the rind of the
lemon.
And he goes, the rind. And then I Googled it, and it's called the rind. So he was just wrong. But I second guessed myself when I said it, and I don't care that it's called whatever it's called. That part's not important at all. What it's called doesn't matter. As long as you understand what it does. And this is a beautiful concept. Do you guys know, you know Richard Feynman, the physicist? Naval Ravikant talks about him all the time. Yeah. So I read a bunch of his books because of him. And there was something his dad taught him when he was young that's about, like, people will go, oh, what's that bird called? And someone will go, oh, the yellow-bellied warbler, right? And then people will be like, that's amazing. Like, clap, trivia, you crushed it. You know, here's a $10,000 grant. But that person knows nothing about what the bird does, what it eats, like its mating patterns, anything. They just know its name. And so being able to name something means you know nothing about that thing. If you can only tell me the name and not anything else about it, you don't know anything about it. So stop saying what it's called, right? So with the lemon thing, I explained, here are the parts of the lemon, right? So there's the outer colorful part, the yellow, that part's just called the zest, actually. So when you zest a lemon, you're zesting it because the outer part's called the zest. Then the white skin, sort of flabby part is called the pith. And then the inner pulp of the actual squeezable lemon juice. So if you zest too deeply into the lemon past the zest and into the pith, the white part, the pith is super bitter and the zest is very thin, which is why when you see chefs do it, they'll zest lightly, roll it, zest, roll, but they do it really quickly and you don't really see that they're rolling it. But when you see the lemon, all the yellow's gone, but the pith is completely intact. So I showed one where I had zested it way too far on purpose. And I said, if you're seeing the pith this scratched up or even showing pulp, you've gone way too far. And one of the comments was, who doesn't know this? You know, I get a lot of hate comments because that's the only trolls comment.
Second is, are you bi?
Answer now.
The best.
That's TikTok.
Yeah,
TikTok audience.
That whoever, I forget the kid's name that questioned that, but because of him, that was the first and last time we ever did TikTok live.
Yeah. But your point is that people are like, yeah, no shit. But there's so many more people that have no idea.
But and here's to his point,
but
right?
I asked the question too, didn't I?
Why are you learning? Yeah. What did I learn about the content creation? It's that like what I thought people want to hear or what I thought was common knowledge or something people wouldn't care about. So many people care about, and then the one guy who knew it has to tell you he knew it, and that everybody's dumb that they didn't know it.
Right.
You know? So I think this is a good thing in general for content creation. Like, don't do anything because of what you think the audience wants to see. Just give all the information you have in the best way you can package it. If it's a reel, make it short and sweet and entertaining. If it's a long form video, still make it entertaining and don't make it that long unless you have a lot of good content to talk about. But either way, just deliver it in the right way, but do not try to guess what they want to know. If you're a beginner, like you guys crush Twitter, right? You know Twitter in and out. We are figuring out Instagram, we're figuring out TikTok. Like we're all just guessing right now, and we're talking to people who know about these things, and I'm guessing mostly too. So at this time, like eventually we'll know what people want and what the algorithm wants, which is really just entertaining videos that get good engagement that people will share, right? Mr. Beast talks about this a lot where he's like, what do you think the algorithm wants? It wants the videos that everyone wants to share with someone else, which are typically just hilarious short videos. Yep. And so stop trying to guess. That would be my biggest takeaway is just tell them what you know and see what it comes out with.
So I feel like that's actually great advice, because when you just speak from the heart about a topic and not try to design the answer, you actually fill in the gaps and give more of like a basic rudimentary approach. Like there's no gaps in the logic.
Yeah. 100%. And I do this in because I didn't know I do this in my daily life where I'm like, oh, you know, when you try to preface something you're about to say so that you don't offend someone, you know, like you think that you're afraid what you're going to bring up would offend them. This actually happened with Jose recently on week 1 of jiu-jitsu training. I was trying to bring up the concept that I thought was like a more commonly known thing. And so when I brought it up to Jose, I was saying like, obviously you've heard the thing about, you know, you you retain 10% of what you read, 30% of what you see, and 80% of what you teach. Have you guys heard that before?
No, I actually haven't.
That's what I mean. Like, I thought I had heard it somewhere, and because I saw it, like Instagram kept showing me it, and I was like, I love this concept, and I feel like it resonates with me, you know. And it was what I like wanted to design the coaching of the jiu-jitsu in that way, where it's like, I'm going to show you it, then we're going to do it, and then we'll just next class take 5 minutes for you to teach it back to me, so that you have to think through the problem solving of doing it, because that's how I learn it, and apparently that's how most people learn stuff. But I prefaced it to them, and they were like, no, we've never heard that before. And it was just another reminder of like, I got to stop I just got to say things and not, it's like when you say, I think blank or I believe blank, you're just saying it to like either not offend someone or be like, oh, this is my opinion, but you don't have to say any of that. You can just state things. And if they're wrong, they're wrong. If they're your opinion, you don't have to say, this is my opinion blank. You can just state your opinion, because you saying it is your opinion.
Yeah. A great model to just be successful in general is like, just provide as much free value and alpha as you can, because you might think it's super rudimentary, but I guarantee you there's a ton of other people that don't know.
100%.
Like we've done, like we were saying, 220 plus episodes. We still get people all the time that ask, hey, what's a good farm to buy from? What are the benefits of raw milk? Why should I be eating seed oils? So it's like, you'll still post about these things, and you get 10 dickheads that are like, yeah, you've posted about this for a year. I'm like, I'm not posting it for you. I'm posting it for like the mom that wants to swap out vegetable oil for tallow so she can cook for her kids a really delicious meal.
100%.
That's what you're doing it for.
Without a doubt. And like Meat Mafia, right? Who you're talking to, the people who subscribe and watch every video, like, all the information now makes the least impact on them, because they know so much on the topic. It's that new person who just saw us, because now with social media, the amount of leverage you have for the type of person viewing the content who you have no idea who it's going to be or what their knowledge level is. So there's this concept before of like, meet people where they are, right? If this person clearly knows something on the topic, don't talk to them like they're an idiot on it. Talk to them blank. You can't tailor it at all on social media, because you don't know who's watching it. So everything either has to be the most dumbed down version of the thing, or just what you know, and you don't care how you present it. And then whoever takes good things from it, great. Whoever doesn't, that's fine too. So I noticed that people who get a lot out of it, they're like, this is amazing. I had no idea that zesting, you have to just use the yellow part. I thought you just keep scratching a lemon until it doesn't exist in your hand anymore, you know? And
have you always liked the teaching aspect of like cooking, jiu-jitsu, baseball, whatever it is?
Yes, and this goes back to, I love it. That's my favorite thing ever. But it was prior, when I was like younger, for the wrong reason, which was like so that I would be right.
Just to nuke people's confidence.
Just never to insult anybody, but so that I felt right. So I felt like I was that master person of the thing, right? But that's just a fraudulent version of thinking you know about a topic, right? Because you know one thing doesn't mean you know everything. And because you get satisfaction by other people being like, wow, they knew this thing. You know, that's not a place you want to live. It's just completely hinders your own growth in the thing. Because now when I'm teaching something on cooking or jiu-jitsu or whatever I want to teach someone about, or if they ask me a question, which is another good topic, don't try and just actively teach people things they don't want to know. If they ask you something, then answer it. But, you know, don't go around preaching. To me now, it used to be for the bad reason, and now it's like, because I realize as I'm teaching it that like I can't teach it that well. And Naval, who is like my favorite person ever in terms of the way he thinks and talks, says like, if you can't, I think he got this from Richard Feynman too, but if you can't explain something simply to like a 5th grader in all the languages you know how to talk in, then you don't know it yourself.
Yes.
Because if you can't break it down really simply and just teach someone that thing in the simplest possible terms for them to understand it, with them walking away feeling like they do understand it, then you really don't know enough about it. And so now I'm like, I get more satisfaction knowing that as I'm teaching it, I realize that, oh, I didn't know that this won't work in this scenario. The thing I thought worked super well doesn't work for Jose, you know, so I have to modify it. Or if the thing I'm teaching on the chefing, you know, the show is like, it only works because I have a certain type of knife that not everybody has. Who's that helpful to? Yeah. So like you teaching it really does make you learn it way more, because you learn such a different like aspect of it, because you have to actively, logically think through and problem solve how to teach it and go around all those obstacles.
So the future of Chef Donny is like more digestible morsels, more information, more alpha, vocabulary, see digestible morsels.
Documentary.
That's a good name.
But we're just going to keep iterating and see what happens, dude.
100%.
Right? That's what it comes down to. And it's like, I think for the three of us, you know, when we first, I mean, you guys have been friends longer than I've known you guys, but it's like, if you were to tell us, you know, 5-10 years ago that this is what the three of us were going to be doing, we would say it's literally a dream.
Yeah.
So it's just so cool just to see the progression of being able to work with you, see you do your thing, how talented you are. And we just can't wait to see what this whole thing turns into. And we just appreciate you joining us today, being part of the team. And that's, I think, it.
It's ironic that he says it's a dream because he's asleep every episode.
Let's clarify that. Yeah. Me asleep? Me asleep.
He woke up episode 19.
You woke up at episode 17, but you have been alert for the last 3 episodes.
He's been on fire.
He's been killing it. Yeah, he's absolutely been killing it.
I don't have a job.
Yeah.
No, he's jobless.
Your comment.
If anyone's listening and hiring.
Your comment of him saying, or being like, guy watches 1 episode of The Bear and then wants to get in the kitchen.
It's so true. That was literally what happened.
So, and then he starts saying, yes, chef, every 10 seconds.
With the towel tucked in, Gordon Ramsay style.
Yeah. But to your point, to cap it off, like all we can do with the show is be consistent. Like when people ask about success on this show and everywhere else, literally the only thing they have to respond with is consistency. So that's all we care about. You know,
show up.
Just do it and then you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, brother.
Hey, love you both.
Donny,
love you.
XOXO. Yeah.
Thanks, bro.
Of course.